What is up, maniacs? Welcome to WMMA Mania, episode 5. I am your host, Drake Riggs, here to bring you all your weekly mixed martial arts needs every Monday. Once again, here we are in the world of the women in mixed martial arts. As you know, if you've been here before, if you have not, then welcome for the first time. Thank you so much for joining me and everyone else who is tuning in. Appreciate you all oh so much. We have quite the lineup today. Not a lot of news, but some pretty big news. We'll be looking at that ridiculous UFC London card that just happened this past weekend, and then looking ahead to One Championship's big 10-year anniversary show, 1X, and of course UFC Columbus. So things on the road again for everybody. Very nice to see. And I guess this lineup actually isn't too big, but kind of some bigger things in the grand scope of it all. So very exciting stuff. Can't wait to get into it. Sorry, guys, a little bit out of it. It's just Mondays, I think. Mondays will get you in at this hour for me. So, but again, greatly appreciate you tuning in. If you're here for the first time, drop a like, leave a like, or do the subscription, all that kind of thing. Hit the notification bell. If you're on YouTube, if you are not on YouTube, then you probably should head over to YouTube if you want to interact in the comments and whatnot. The Twitter chat cannot be seen by my eyes, so there's no point to drop anything in there unless you're talking with other people. And if you're on Facebook, then I can see those too, so that's fine. But most of the people are always in YouTube if you want to have fun there. So what is going on, everybody? I see people joined very early today, 30 minutes or so. Scott, maybe even earlier, was in the chat and talking about some things. And I see he mentioned Tiffany Van Soest too. That is kickboxing. Did not see that fight, but I did see that fantastic finish. She got the spinning back kick to the body there, shut down the opponent. Good stuff. And craziness in kickboxing in general with that Glory event, as it got canceled midway through, which is nuts. And I'm not sure if that's happened before. I know some people were talking about it, but yeah, that was a crazy scene. Chuck is here. Good afternoon. Hello, how are you? Ghost is prefacing a long rant coming up. The importance of jabbing for the shorter fighter. Yeah, sure. Sounds good to me. James, too kind. Good to see you. Yes, Rain says suggestion for the new people and only watch my show for your needs. Appreciate it greatly, sir. So, without further ado, let's get into the madness that was UFC London. But first, I guess, Jimmy, bringing this up, did I see Panchan complain about Tiffany's performance? And she said she wants to do Glory. I didn't see Panchan complain necessarily. I saw her tweet at Glory, I think. She said, I saw her say something. I didn't see her complaining necessarily, but different weight classes though, right? Tiffany is, I know she fought at flyweight in MMA, and Panchan is very light. So I don't think that fight makes sense. It'd be cool if it could happen, I guess, but I don't know. That's interesting. Good to see you, Alvin, as always. What an incredible weekend of fights. Such great fighters giving it their best. What more can we ask for, huh? Great point. Makoto, good to see you. But anyways, UFC London, as mentioned, and we're going to start off with one of the most absurd knockouts you'll ever see, as Meatball Molly gets it done in the third round via knockout. Spinning back elbow of all things. My goodness, how anyone could have predicted that. They'd be lying if they said they were predicting that. Ridiculous. This was just absolutely violent. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a fighter's eyes roll into the back of their head like the Undertaker when they got knocked out, and while standing too, before she even hit the ground. So that was very wild to see. And I saw some people say that Jai Herbert had the same thing happen before, but I didn't notice that. Either way, great finish for Molly, obviously. I mean, that's the highlight of all highlights. Solid performance. Almost put her away in the first round, just absolutely unloaded on Carolina, had her hurt on like 2 instances. Very, very slow start for Carolina. She picked things up as the fight went on, obviously, as she got very aggressive in that third round. Knew she was down, surely, at least you would hope. That's how she fought. And ended up getting caught very clearly. But yeah, tried to implement the clinch a little bit more to get in tight, which was doing all right. But again, on the break, Molly just absolutely, my goodness, sent her to the shadow realm, as they will say. But yeah, very, very solid performance. Big win for her in front of the hometown crowd. I don't think it does too much for her in terms of, I mean, momentum, obviously. Just got that win over Jihen Kim before in the Apex. That was good and fun as well. But, I mean, obviously, Dana loves her. So in terms of her brand and people wanting to see her again, this was huge. But I don't know. I think it doesn't tell us too much about maybe improvements that she's made. At least it definitely told us that she's willing to throw some crazier shit. And if it lands, you might be in trouble. I think we even saw a spinning wheel kick from her at one point in this fight, but did not land. So yeah, pretty wild though. That was one of those moments that gets a reaction out of you. I mean, how could you not react crazily to a spinning back elbow like that? Just absurd. Just absurd. Scott says, Elise Reed handled her business just like we thought. Derek Cleary's great scorecard. I was saying, we'll get to that. We will certainly get to that. Ghost says, no, that KO was spectacular. Big props to Meatball, even though it wasn't the best competition. Yeah, pretty much kind of what I was getting at. Carolina hasn't been too impressive in her UFC run, and my goodness, that was just nasty. Just nasty, as Chuck says. Derek Cleary's scorecard is just proof that a judge doesn't have to be from an area to give a hometown decision. Yeah, I mean, again, we'll talk about that next here in a moment. But I think I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I think the hometown decision thing is a myth, at least in regards to the judges being bias or from the country or whatever. Because, like I said, with Brazil, oftentimes, and I mean, in this case, right, Derek Cleary is not British, I don't think, but not the judges aren't always from the country, is kind of what I'm getting at there. So, Scott says Molly's knockout paid off at plus 3,500, and Jed Mishu predicted it. Drake, dude is on one lately. He predicted the knockout. There's no way he predicted the spinning elbow. I don't believe that, even though there would be video proof, right? But if he predicted a knockout, then good call there. That's impressive. Jin Dukai says, this is no doubt the best resource on the YouTube app. Rue says, does Molly's bonus pay more than her show money? I would imagine so. I don't know what she's at right now. If somebody would so kindly, if they want to do a quick search and see whatever one of Molly's past pays was, I could tell you this much. I did research on it maybe last year. I don't remember when, somewhat recently, but you notice there's a pattern that after every, I think, 2 fights or so, they get pay increased by like $2,000 or $4,000. So not a lot or as much as you'd like to see, but if you're starting, let's say in theory from the 12-12, then I don't think Molly's had enough fights, or unless she's restructured a contract, that kind of thing. But if you're just going to go numerically, however it is, but I would imagine maybe Rue, which is a bummer, but not totally sure there. Chuck says, Molly's knockout made up for the rest of the fight being trashed here. Wow, that's a bit extreme, I think. I mean, round 1 was more enjoyable than round 2. But I didn't think it was awful. It was just um, fairly one-sided. I mean, Carolina did not offer up too much early on. That's for sure. Scott says just a third round knockout prediction, not the elbow. Right. Yeah, no way. I would not believe that. But um, yeah, that's impressive. Good call, Jed. Shout out to him where it's due. So yeah, big win, obviously, for Molly in front of the hometown. Crazy, crazy stuff. Well, I don't know if she's from London, right? She's Liverpool also. Either way, big win. Keeps gaining momentum, and we'll see what is next for her. Gonna be interesting. Always a fun one to watch. And as we were talking about last week, a little bit surprised that she didn't try to well, I guess she did have the slam. I was gonna say she didn't try to wrestle her too much at all in this one. Didn't need to, but figured maybe would have been something she went to at some point, maybe a little bit more. But again, didn't need to in front of the crowd. I guess shouldn't have expected that all too much, but was a possibility. Um, as Chuck says, nah, it was a terrible fight. Molly acting like a rock'em sock'em robot. Carolina being too slow to react. Yeah, but I mean, you could kind of say the same thing about Arnold Allen and Dan Hooker. I mean, the way that guy was just throwing was complete rock'em sock'em. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying it was the best fight, but I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it whatsoever. So let's get on to the next one, though, which is, or the only other one, which was Elise Reed defeating Corey McKenna via split decision, a 27-30 for McKenna, and then 29-28, which I believe was my score as well. 29-28 or 30-27 for Reed is the right call here. A 30-27 for Corey McKenna is just inexcusably bad. At first, when I heard that, I was thinking that was one of the worst scorecards of all time. And I guess you could maybe still make that case. But then I thought about it. I was like, all right, let's not jump to that conclusion, because that first round, I think, was close enough to where, all right, I can understand it. Even though, as you see here at the numbers, she did get outstruck 42-27. Had the takedown, didn't really do anything with it. Second round, that was Elise Reed's round as well. Like, these numbers actually make it seem a little bit closer than it really was, I think. But 30-27 was just I don't see, if you actually watch the round rather than looking at the numbers right here, I don't think that there's any way you can give Corey McKenna that second round. But there's arguments, I suppose, for 1 and 3. But just in terms of who was more impactful, doing more damage, that was Elise Reed. I mean, her right hand, that was a magnet to McKenna's face. Never could adjust to it whatsoever. Didn't really have any setup or anything around it from Elise, but it looked good. It was fast and it was connecting. So if it works, it works. As we've said on the show before, got the job done. Don't have to overcomplicate things. And so, yeah, I mean, she looked sharp in this performance. Can still grow and build off it. Didn't quite do that in the fight, as I'm sure that is what Ghost will be ranting about right this second. But yeah, Corey McKenna's still very young as well. As you guys know, I do not think she should have beat Kay Hansen. That was a robbery in my eyes. I was training with Team Alpha Male. I think not Buckholes. Was Castillo in her corner? I know I saw somebody from the Team Alpha Male team in her corner, because she is still with them, as mentioned. We were a little bit confused by that last week, but is what it is. We'll see what she can do her next time out. Same for Elise Reed. Very curious about that. All right. Here we are. As Ghost says, we talked about last week about doing the same exchange over and over again. said with that right hand. This fight took that mediocrity to a whole new level. Oh boy. All right, here we go. As Go says, Reed established her right hand and never built off it. Indeed, didn't use a single feint of her right hand or end the combo with a jab or left hook to close the door. This is true. If a fighter gets hit with a rear hand lead with no clever setup, then they are automatically a bum. Okay, well, a bit aggressive there, Ghost. Disagree. Throwing some shade. McKenna took 5 and 5 separate exchanges in the first round. McKenna's corner work was bizarre. Throw a right hand if she throws a right hand with her. When the best way to deal with a right hand is to jab or lead hook with the hands, teep or low kick with the legs. The right hand is a short weapon. It should be countered with longer weapons to disrupt rhythm. McKenna is already at a reach disadvantage, and they wanted her to throw her shortest attack. Yeah, she has very short arms, doesn't she? Reach disadvantage should not be an excuse for McKenna not using her jab or her teep to interrupt a right hand for Reed. Fair. When a fighter has a disadvantage in reach, you can still out-jab your opponent. Best examples are Tommy Loughran, Sanchai, and Manny Pacquiao. I mean, you could throw DC in there, right? Jose Naples gave up a foot in reach against Lozon and skewered him with jabs by using crafty footwork. All fighters mentioned stand at the end of range, force the opponent to overextend and follow up inside. They also jabbed opponents even though they had a massive reach disadvantage. These fighters use a jab as a controlling weapon even though they have a reach disadvantage. And Scott agrees that no doubt Hansen beat McKenna as well. As Ghost continues on, says there was a moment when McKenna double jabbed and Reed jumped back to the fence, but McKenna never took the space that Reed gave up. Just an inexperienced thing, I think, is what all of this boils down to. As Ghost says, the whole purpose of the double jab against a retreating opponent is to back them up and take up the space your opponent gives you. And what was worse is McKenna never went back to it again. I'm not asking for insane speed, diversity of attack and active defense, or even a constant change of positions, just some basic strategic ideas with some sound tactics. Oh yeah, Yusuf must have enjoyed Reed versus McKenna since all three don't understand the concept of distance. All right. Yes, that was quite lengthy, as Jimmy says. Damn, Ghost went off, and probably right. Yeah. Well, like I said, still young. Can work on these things. Don't like the insults there because hey, you know how we go. But yeah, Elise Reed gets her first UFC win. So good for her. Curious to see what is next. She is still very small for the division. Could be an atomweight. We know that. But there is no atomweight in the UFC. So no need to even talk about that. Corey McKenna, not the biggest strawweight either, but well, what in that the K fight was not at flyweight, was it? For some reason, I feel like she's also fought at flyweight before. Oh well, doesn't matter. As we move on, that was UFC London, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that event because it was quite crazy. Don't see how you wouldn't enjoy that event. It was something else. And just great to have that energy back for fight nights, I would say. It was quite fun. As we get to the news. The news. The big one. You guys know what's coming. Let's get the tabs ready here. As UFC 274 has its co-main event on May 7th. The strawweight title, oh my goodness, it is finally on the line for the rematch between Rose Namajunas and Carla Esparza. The fight should have been made a while ago. It is here now. It is coming sooner than it seemed like we would get it. Sounded like it might be summertime, something like that, but getting it in May. So that's very nice. Again, as we should have gotten it sooner, but hey, better late than never. Very excited for this one. Just The story surrounding it, just ridiculous. You know, the tables being turned nearly 10 years later. They came into the UFC at the same time, fought one another for the title. Carla wins, submits Rose. Now here we are. Rose is the champ. Won the title twice since then. Carla has not, but she's on the best stretch of her career since she was the champion, the inaugural champion. And now they get to do it again. Rose, a completely different fighter. I wouldn't quite say Carla is a completely different fighter, but older, wiser, more experienced. Still does that same thing very, very well, which is wrestle her ass off. Striking has gotten better. It's still not great, but if you guys remember, striking was pretty not great back in the day. Practically after Joanna put it on her, then kind of got scared a little bit, at least in that Lima fight that came after. We'll never forget that performance. Just seemed a little bit scared to strike, but Carla has overcome that, worked her way back to this position, which she very much deserves. And 5 rounds. It's the fight that makes sense. What more do we need to say about it? Just happy it's happening sooner rather than later, even though, again, should have been sooner. Just repeating myself at this point. Going to be good. As Scott says, UFC London was like a party. Awesome to watch. That it was. Scott cheering for Thug Rose. Centro says, when Rose beats Carla and Whaley beats Joanna again, I hope Whaley disfigures Carla's face. Oh my. Well, I don't. I guess that fight could happen in that case. Jimmy says, so does Rose get a rematch if she loses? My goodness. Probably. I would disagree with that. I don't think that should happen, but I feel like you can practically guarantee that. It drives me crazy, these rematches at strawweight, even though this one is different than kind of the more recent ones. I mean, Rose has fought 3 people in her last 6 fights, you guys. I mean, think about that. And again, this is a rematch too, but obviously there's been a lot more time between it, so it's not as bad. But yeah, to milk the trilogy, if Carla wins, I would not at all be surprised if they were to do that. I mean, what they wanted to do an instant rematch for Rose when she lost to Andrade, didn't they? I don't know. Even though people said Whaley didn't get a rematch. She didn't get a rematch, Jimmy. What are you talking about? So, or shouldn't get, is that what you mean? I mean, they both shouldn't get rematches. Whaley shouldn't have got a rematch. Let's be honest here, you guys. I mean, she defended the title once and then lost quickly. I mean, if fucking Jose Aldo isn't gonna get an instant rematch after losing to Conor McGregor, yeah, a little bit different, I suppose. But yeah, that I don't know. Dana just loves doing the instant rematches at strawweight, as we can tell. Joanna, I mean, that one was fair because Joanna was a reigning champ for a good while. I mean, the longest reigning champ in the division. Just make it make sense, and especially in divisions that are so deep. I hope that doesn't happen if Carla wins, which is very possible, but I wouldn't at all be surprised, which is a bummer. So we don't have to worry about that yet, but we will see. We'll see how it shakes out. Just glad to see that Rose is maybe going to be a little bit more active during this reign. Again, as this is happening before the summer, which is when it seemed like we were going to get it. So, Scott says, thank you, Drake. Making it a Rose rematch fighter. She's KO'd in under 1 round is not fair to Thug Rose. Drives me crazy. There's also that. I mean, again, I think the Joanna one was fine. And then the Whaley one, not so much. There have been several cases like this. Cody Garbrandt, TJ Dillashaw. List goes on and on. As James says, I like that double standard. People asking for an instant rematch after Rose lost to Andrade the first time. I think the thought behind that one was that Rose was winning and looked amazing in that first round, clearly. And then lost in a fluky way because you never see slams like that. So I think that was the thought process. If I was to offer a reasoning there, still don't agree with it, but I can see that being the logic, which I just explained there, Rue. As I said, people ask for Rose to get rematches when she gets dropped on her head. As I said again, a little bit of a comeback for Andrade, but that's just the way you look. What's another situation like that? There have been some, nothing off the top of my head, but I understand that point. I don't agree with it again, but that's just how some people operate. Anyway, as we continue on with the other bit of news, just two things on the lineup here. Flyweight, Kayla Giukajian returns to the UFC, and she's taking on Amanda Ribas. It would so seem, as that fight is targeted for the May 14th UFC Fight Night event, as the week after. Excuse me. The week after 274 that we just talked about. Yeah, Ribas moving up in weight, it would seem. And this is the exact same case with when Andrade did it. So Andrade goes up, she beats Giukajian, and then she's right in title fights. So we could see the same thing if Ribas was to win this fight, which I don't really like that. I really don't, especially for somebody. It made a lot more sense for Andrade, but for Ribas to go up and potentially skip the line like that, just it would be too soon. I mean, if you're able to beat Giukajian, then that is, a big deal. But I don't know. It's just it's like potentially puts you in just a very odd spot where you're stuck. Because then if she wins against Giukajian, gets title shot against Shevchenko, and then loses, oh, well, just wasted my time at flyweight, potentially. Assuming Shevchenko would still be around, and no reason not to expect that, unless Tyler Santos has something to say. But should be interesting. I don't hate it from a matchup perspective. So that's that. Kelly says, hi, Drake. Loved your breakdowns on the scrap. Well, good to see you, Kelly. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really liked the way Lee won's first time I saw her fight was UFC 248 at a friend's house. Very cool. Very cool. And thank you. And shout out to Ghost Phantom, because he's the one who did all the breakdowns. I was just the narrator. So very good. As Chuck says, not sure if it's on my end, but there's intermittent buffering on the stream. Oh, that is not good. I hope that is not the case for everybody. Please let me know if you guys are having issues. If so, I greatly apologize. But it's flowing on mine. As Kelly says, such skill and will to win. She's a very inspirational fighter. This is true. Oh, thank you so much for tuning in, Kelly. But yes, Giukajian, Ribas, May 14th. Should be fun. But interesting. Didn't see that one coming. Obviously, Ribas trying to remain active after losing that Watterson fight twice now, I believe. As Kelly says, I'm curious, how come you never did a breakdown on Joanne, Rodriguez, or Valentina? Don't ask me, Kelly. As I said, those were done by Ghost Phantom, so you can ask him that one. But if he doesn't like a fighter too much, then he generally won't. So, okay, James says that his connection is fine. That is good. Yeah, I don't have the bars too low right now, which is nice. They go back and forth because my connection is not great. But yeah, I would love to see breakdowns on those fighters, Kelly. Don't get me wrong. Also, you guys, I should mention, even though we're in the news portion here, about to head to the previews, that Pancrase did happen last night. Pancrase 326, so many Pancrase events. And Emi Fujino, she lost her title to Karen Pravajra. Big time upset there. Got cut. And a TKO via doctor stoppage from the cut in the 4th round. I did not see the fight, but it sounded pretty crazy. Curious to see that one, but my goodness. Emi Fujino probably should call it a career. Bummer for her. Always love watching her fight. It's been a wild ride, but lost to a fighter with 3 fights, I believe. I don't know. Karen doesn't have that many fights. But new champ, new queen of Pancrase, strawweight queen of Pancrase. So crazy things happening all over the place. As Jimmy says, connection is fine. All right, good. That is great to hear. As we move on to this weekend's events, starting off with 1X. Goes down on March 26th. We have 4 fights, 1 grappling match on the big 1X extravaganza. That is 1X, 20 total fights. My goodness. That's going to be a lengthy night of action in Singapore as we kick things off in their 115-pound atomweight division. Asha Roka versus Elise Anderson. Tapology does not have this fight in their system yet, so that's why there's no visual here for you, as we generally do that with the previews each week. But what I can tell you about both fighters is, if you're unfamiliar with Asha Roka, 23 years old, out of India, the knockout queen, her nickname, just 4-2, began her career in 2017, hasn't won in 1 championship, and last fought in January of 2020. So it has been a while since Asha Roka has been in the cage, and she does not get an easy out. Her first loss was to Stamp Fairtex, so no shame in that one. Got submitted, and then Gina Inyang in her most recent fight, but was undefeated before then, just 4 fights, but now taking on Elise Anderson, who, I mean, I don't want to call this fight a layup or whatever you want to say, one of those kind of fights. But I mean, Elise Anderson was just in the tournament, looked pretty great against Itsuki. Had her in a lot of trouble in that 3rd round, dropped her with the punch. Wasn't able to finish it, but we know Elise Anderson is fairly dangerous in many areas. I mean, she had that flying triangle against Stephanie Alba and Invicta. That was a crazy win. Invicta 30 in 2018. Hasn't been too active since her Invicta days, just the Itsuki fight for Elise, but just a very large, at least in terms of length. Well, I guess not really in comparison here. She just looks long, right? She's got kind of that long frame, does Elise Anderson, compared to Asha Roka, who is 5'3", size advantage. Don't know if it would go in either way because, of course, Elise Anderson has actually made the real atomweight number of 105 pounds, whereas 1 championship just faking it. These are strawweights in disguise. So I can't speak too much on Asha Roka because it has been a while since she's fought. So apologies there. But Elise Anderson, I mean, even if you were to go back and do some study, this feels like a fight for her to win. Hate to say that, don't necessarily want to say that, but she just does everything fairly well. I think she's a much better grappler than she is a striker, but hey, she's packing some power, obviously, able to sit down Itsuki the way she did, and, you know, has a TKO in the past, but that is, I think, the first fight of the night, I believe. Not so sure. As Chuck corrects me, 4-0 was Karen. All right. So I knew it wasn't too much. wasn't too much experience there for Karen, but now she's the champion and just got one of the best wins that she could have asked for. As Craig is here, good to see you, Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in, sir. As Makoto says, 1X, what a name. I know, 3 Days Grace. They should be suing him for copyright. One of the albums of my childhood. Shout out to 3 Days Grace here on the show. If anyone understands that reference, then I applaud you. Oh, okay. Well, Chuck says Anderson versus Roka is off. The bout was updated earlier this morning. Anderson illness. All right, never mind. Forget everything I just said. That makes sense why it isn't on Tapology then. I'm all over the place, you guys. I apologize. So there's one fight that isn't happening. All right. How about that? As Melanie is here, good to see you, Melanie. Thanks so much for tuning in. She says, greetings again, Drake. Good show. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Yuna is here as well. Good to see you. Hi, after seeing Meatball's win and the Whaley elbow breakdown, why aren't these techniques drilled in most schools? She says, in my Muay Thai class, they do not teach those types of tricky elbows. They always teach mechanics instead of setups. I mean, it's because they're flashy, right? It's not nobody needs to do spinning back elbows. Nobody needs to do Showtime kicks off the wall. Nobody needs to do rolling thunder kicks, right? Like all these crazy things, cartwheel kicks, whatever. They don't need to do them. And I mean, how practical are they? Is kind of the thing. I think in this case, this might be a bad example because Molly breaking the clinch the way she did with that elbow. I mean, that's a great thing, a great move to do, obviously, if you're close enough and, set up kind of, if you practice it. Yeah, it's just the usage of it, the percentage that it's going to work. All these kind of things are just far less practical than, your basics. Like you said, the mechanics right there, like what it's all about finding what's going to work most often, I think. Yes, they're fun, and when they land, it's insane and it works. But to start out, I mean, I don't think it's the wisest to go right to those kind of moves, obviously. But as Alvin says, such a great time to be a fight fan. All these great fighters on such great promotions. As Yuna also says, but Whaley's elbows are pretty simple, but extremely well set up, right? Yes. Yeah, that is true. That is very true. But again, specifically in reference to like the spinning back elbow that Molly threw, it's different that way. Anything spinning, really, that's kind of something that, is not quite the most practical of moves. But I mean, elbows just in tight in the clinch or wherever, or the way that Whaley sets them up, for example. Those are great to incorporate in your game. And I mean, I love elbows in general, so you're never going to hear me say no to that. But Chuck also says, Elise Anderson, second tallest atom weight at 5'5", as Yuri Shim is first at 5'6". Lorosenko was the tallest atom weight ever at 5'7". Okay, that is interesting to know. And what Panchan is 5'5" or 5'6" as well, I believe. Obviously not an MMA fighter, but she's quite tall for her weight class of 101 pounds or so. As Chuck also says, Donghyun Kim versus Tyron Woodley, a great example of why to stay away from spinning elbows and focus on higher probability strikes. Yes, that is a great point. See, it's that margin of error greatly goes up when you turn your back, believe it or not. I mean, that's also a rare case, though, I think, where we haven't really seen too many cases like Stun Gun and Woodley, but it's the risk versus reward factor for sure. So, all right, let's continue on then with fights that are happening. Sucks that Anderson versus Roka is off, but we do have a grappling match between Mei Yamaguchi and Danielle Kelly, which, as we talked about, was it a week ago or 2 weeks, whenever it was that this was announced, I was losing my mind at first because I was like, oh my goodness, is this an MMA fight? They can't do that. Why would you do this to Danielle Kelly? And not to say that Vivi May has been her best self recently, because that is not the case, unfortunately, and probably getting towards the end of her career. But in a grappling match, this is a lot more logical, as that is definitely May's area of expertise as a fighter, despite having some power in those hands, as we've seen many a time. Danielle Kelly, though, a little bit of a prodigy, rather good grappler. She has yet to make her MMA debut. She will at some point, but yeah, I don't have too much really to break down about this match because I haven't watched too much of Danielle Kelly, but she is very, very good. Obviously, if you have seen her in any match that she's been in. So yeah, this is a complete not changing of the guard because it is not MMA, but look at one championship, adding all of the elements into one as they generally do. I don't remember the last grappling match that they had actually. So Ghost says, Yuna, those elbows from Whaley are hard to train because they could hurt your partners. This is also true. It's just the way she trains them that makes them practical. Yes. Yeah. Training those types of strikes, you can't really pad well, I guess you can't put elbow pads on, but it's, yeah, you don't want to cut your training partners in training. That's for sure. Scott says, Dana Kelly has so much potential. Look forward to seeing her fight in one. Yes, will be very, very interesting to see how she does cross over into MMA once she does officially debut as an MMA fighter and not a grappler. As Rain says, May Yamaguchi, just a great name to say. It does roll right off the tongue, doesn't it? VV May. So, yeah, that should be interesting. Definitely should be. But now here we go. We get to the real meat of this card with the ladies, as all at atomweight, of course. I guess not, of course. They could have done some of their 125-pound strawweight fights, but their division is not that loaded at the moment. So Itsuki Herata versus Jihen Radzwan. I'm very much looking forward to this fight. As if you did see Jihen's return to action against Mei Yamaguchi her last time out, which was just under a month ago. Was that? It doesn't say the event, but she did beat Mei. Clean, unanimous decision. Jihen, if Ghost is seeing her, I'm sure he's going to be in love because the inside leg kicks, she was just spamming away. Spamming away on Mei. She was working that leg over beautifully. Very good stuff there from Jihen. And Mei just kind of tried to get her to the ground for most of that fight. I think did on an occasion, but really was holding her up against the cage for most of it. So she is a superior striker in this matchup as well against Itsuki, who isn't a terrible striker by any means, but we know that she's got the judo in the back pocket. Will get you to the mat any chance she gets in it. Well, I did not realize that Jihen was this young. Wow, we got 22 versus 23. I just feel like she's been around for a decent while. We started early. Did Shadow Cat, fantastic nickname, by the way, as fantastic picture Tapology putting her cat in the picture with her. Fantastic. Yeah, that is bizarre. I thought the Jihen was a little bit older than that, but okay. Both 5'2", don't have the reach on Jihen, but she uses her distance striking very well. Itsuki going to want to close the distance here. I believe that she will get a hold of Jihen, probably take her for a ride at some point, and then it gets very interesting because, again, I don't think this is a pure striker versus grappler matchup where they are going to be completely lost in those opposite areas where their opponent is best at. But as we've seen in the past with Jihen, which was a while ago, 2 years ago, suffered that loss to Denise Zamboanga, who pretty talented grappler herself. Itsuki gets it to the ground, which again, I think she will. Going to put Jihen in some trouble, but defensively, she did some nice things to avoid bad positions against Mei, but different kind of sizes. Mei Yamaguchi is a rather tiny competitor, whereas Itsuki, rather strong rather strong. Same, more similar build and size in this matchup, where she'll be able to exploit that a bit in those tight clinch moments up against the cage. If it goes there, sure it will. But she's going to get her leg chopped. That, I think, is a guarantee. As Ghost says, and the right hand to follow inside low kicks. Bring them back. All right. Yeah, there you go. It's Karen H. Chai is here. Good to see you, Karen. Thank you so much for tuning in. I saw all the Phantom Punch breakdowns. Your breakdowns on the scrap are very attentive. How do you identify the setups and habits of each fighter that you study? Well, again, Karen, to clarify, I appreciate everybody coming in and all the kindness from the new faces. Great to see. But again, Ghost Phantom is the man behind the Phantom Punch breakdown. I'm just the narrator. He is very good at what he does. So these are questions for him, and I'm sure you'll be happy to answer. But thank you so much for checking everything out, of course. As she also says, also read both your Whaley articles. Lovely writing and good detail. I can tell you put a lot of work into them. Well, thank you so much, Karen. Yes, those I did do. So the stories, they are mine. Appreciate you liking them so much. Yes, I do my best to fit in as much detail and quality as I can. I put in a lot of effort to them. So I really appreciate that. As Jimmy says, oh man, Ghost loves the inside low kick. Yes, he does. Great. It's a great tactic, as we know. Excuse me. As Ruth says, well, she throws the inside low kick. We know who Ghost is rooting for. Yes, meme time, says Centro. As Litchfield says, Herata for the win. It's good. I'm very excited for this fight. Honestly, no, I'm not most excited for it because we're about to get to some very exciting things, but it's definitely one I'm very much looking forward to. We'll see how Itsuki can adapt to some of those strikes and if she can catch anything. But Jihen was catching some kicks. Not that Itsuki throws a whole bunch, but she has some in the arsenal. So, excuse me. Sorry, guys. Again, rough Monday, but let's continue on. Let us continue on with the rematch. Sohee Ham versus Denise Zamboanga 2. It's going down. All the marbles. No marbles on the line, but gonna put this one behind us. I feel like there's been so much time since the first one now that it's like I just want to move on from it. I love to watch Sohee at any opportunity, and I think that this fight should look a lot different than the first one. But yeah, I'm ready to move on from it, as I'm sure just any silliness I think that happens in or around this fight, we'll just never hear the end of it. And I want to hear the end of it. But the winner of this fight should absolutely fight for the title against whoever wins the main event, which we'll talk about next. But yes, Hamderley versus the Menace, 5-2-5-2. I mean, we've been here before. Sohee Ham wins the first fight, rightfully so, in my opinion. If you go back and watch that fight, really, Sohee was the one being more effective, which is the name of the game. Who's coming closer to finishing? No one was really too close in the fight to finishing, but just landed at a more significant clip, whereas Denise was just kind of, it turned into wall installing. Not that she was intending to do that, right? But she tried to grapple, ended up hitting a big takedown late in the fight, which if you score that highly enough and think that should have earned her the win, all right, I suppose. But everything up until then, I think Ham did just enough to outscore her, essentially. So in this fight, how will it be different? I think that I don't know if Denise will try to do a two different approach. Honestly, I think that with Sohee, she'll obviously be looking to stay away from Zamboanga and her pressure that she might bring. but now more comfortable being in there with her. Going to be a bit more aggressive considering how this fight went the first time, which could backfire. But I mean, when Sohee's on, she is on. We know how great she can be. One of the greatest fighters of all time, the Korean MMA GOAT. I just think, yeah, I don't see why Denise would really try and change it up. And I mean, for this rematch, specifically when she already thinks that she did win, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. But I think Sohee will be a bit more active in moments that maybe she wasn't the first time around, you could say. And Karen says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Great breakdowns, both Ghost and Trick. Thank you. It's okay. Yeah, don't need to be sorry. It's a common misconception." So Ghost giving me sending the unintentional compliments my way. As Kimball says, "Hi, good to see you, Kimball. Thank you so much for tuning in once again." As Jimmy says, "What if the same thing happens again, where it's scored for Ham in another close fight? Then it's going to be very annoying, Jimmy. It's going to be a very annoying situation on our hands. But I hope we don't have to worry about that. I really do. And I feel comfortable that it won't. But you never know." Sharon is here again. Good to see you as well. She says, "Good to see you. I love how inclusive and welcoming you and your chat is. Very rare to see." Well, we do our best. We do our best. Not always the most welcoming, though, but I try to keep everybody in line the best that I can. So he Denis Zamboanga 2 for the belt. A winner fighting for the belt, you would imagine, unless one just hates Sohee, which maybe they do. I mean, the amount of disrespect that they have given her so far indicates that could be the case. As Chuck mentions, Zamboanga struggled against a rusty Ham and will need more improvements compared to her. Yes, that is very, very true. And I mean, if you do look back at that as well, that was, yes, Ham who had not fought in, it was the longest longest stretch of inactivity for her of her career, if I'm remembering correctly. She also packed on some muscle, really changed the body a bit, and still was able to get the win there. So I don't think she is one to blame rust, or we should, but she definitely seemed like she was kind of getting the feel back again. James says, "I have a question at the end of the show. Can you tell when I can put it up?" I mean, you can ask whenever. I don't quite understand the question right there, James, but anyway, Ham versus Zamboanga, the rematch, which precedes the main event, not directly before. I think what is on part 2 of the 3-part show is in the main event. We have the champion returning, Angela Lee versus Stamp Fairtex. The title on the line. Stamp's big ass tournament belt versus Angela's undisputed title. This is practically interim champ versus champ, right? And one hell of a matchup. Gonna be interesting to see how Stamp fares against the size of Angela Lee, even though, I mean, she's looking a lot more toned and leaned out, I think, compared to what she generally looks like, I guess, ahead of fights. We'll see how she looks on fight night. But generally, a rather large strawweight, 115-pounder, if you will. Stamp, not the biggest either, but one hell of a Muay Thai practitioner. Some fantastic striker, and she's adapting quite well in the grappling department. So, will it be enough against Angela Lee? That is the question, because I promise you that this fight is going to go to the ground where Angela Lee wants it. And from there, Stamp is going to be in a lot of trouble. As great as she is getting defensively and offensively with her submission skills, no matter what they are, set up that armbar on Ritu. I mean, Angela Lee, just a very tricky fighter to deal with on the ground. We've seen her hit twisters before. Yes, it's been a while since she's fought, but it's all muscle memory in that regard. On the feet, that is where Stamp is going to want it. We've seen her do well in the clinch against some bigger opponents. I mean, you look at the Ritu fight again. The knees in there, tight. I mean, anything she wants, she can generally use at her disposal there. But in this fight, she's going to want to keep Angela Lee away from her, I think. And Angela Lee is going to do everything she can, whether it means running directly into Stamp. We will see it. Or who knows? It's one of those weird cases, right, where I feel like it might not be fair to say that we have not seen the best of Angela Lee because she is still just 25 years old, which is absolutely absurd considering, for how long she's been around now. 12 fights, defended that title, 6 times? I don't even know how many defenses she has. She has a lot of defenses, beat a lot of good people. She can still only get better, and maybe she will surprise the hell out of us in this fight. It's very intriguing. But Stamp obviously been super active, fought 3-4 times last year. Obviously suffered that loss in the beginning against Rosohenia, a fight that she was winning. And they ended up turning that one around in the rematch. Turning around doesn't make sense, but she looked great in the rematch, got it done there. Yes. As Chuck says, Ham, going back to the other fight, Ham also had to weigh in the day of, hadn't adapted to one's weight hydration policy. Yes, the ever interesting policy. But James says it's not really relevant to what you were talking about right now. That's why, yeah, of course you can ask after, James, no problem there. As Jimmy says, use the Fan of Punches as references for this one. Yeah, if you guys want to go and check out the Fan of Punch breakdowns for Angela Lee and Stamp Fairtex, I implore you to. I definitely say go check that out. As Rue says, doesn't Lee go for clinches when she is near the cage? Absolutely does. Absolutely does. As we did see in the Fan of Punch breakdown. Yes, he likes to corner and kind of trap opponents, bully them essentially. And so with Stamp, I don't see that being any different. Again, unless she wants to come out and show us that she's a very good striker now. Who knows if she's developed this crazy game while she's been away, while she's been becoming a mother. Who knows? That's the excitement of it all. As Mary says, hello. Good to see you, Mary. Thanks so much for tuning in once again. Same with Jersey. Good to see you. How does Stamp stay off the cage in this fight? I saw the Fan of Punch breakdowns, and that is a habit Lee has. Yes, so for Stamp to stay off the cage, obviously you got to circle out of those positions in whichever direction that she can. Just she's got to find the center. It's a tough matchup, I think, for Stamp. I know some people like her to win. I haven't seen too many polls necessarily, but I don't know. I just think you look at Angela Lee and where some people have had great success against her, Jingnan in particular, right? I mean, that's probably the best case. I mean, even Yamaguchi dropped her, which was crazy that she survived that, but was just a straight right down the pipe in that first fight. Stamp is just very comfortable, though, wherever she's going. As Ghost says right here, Lee tends to follow and not cage cut. So that should be interesting. Indeed, kind of was getting at. It says, but Stamp likes to back herself up. Yeah, see, she gets a little bit cozy in those situations sometimes. So if you follow these tendencies, reason to believe we could see the same thing play out there. As Rain says, I think this is where spatial awareness is important for Stamp. Yes, very much so. As he says, Stamp doesn't really use cagecraft. Yeah, it's a tough one for her. On paper, if everything about Angela Lee that we know kind of resurfaces, if she doesn't look, if she could be rusty. I'm talking about all the positive sides of if she comes back here and how she can look, but she could very well, it could be the opposite. It's very intriguing. It's one of those fights where one has been very, very active and the other not so much. Not so much. But hey, she's been around the fight game, hasn't been an injury, she's been training, all that kind of thing. But you can only prepare so much until fight night. So essentially, though, I would be absolutely stunned. Stunned if this fight does not go to the ground. Like I said, Angela Lee always finds a way. Always has a path to the ground. As Ghost says, she has good striking on the tracks, but that's it. She doesn't square people up or get on the fence, as he's talking about Stamp right there, I believe. Yes, that is true. But will she need to against Angela Lee, right? Will she need to square her up? That's why we watch. So, and 5 rounds to work with. Stamp's first 5-round fight, right? I don't think the Ritu tournament fight was 5 rounds. They didn't do it that way, did they? Even though it was for, the Grand Prix title, I don't think that was 5. So, the longer this fight goes, they would probably favor Angela. I mean, we saw her kind of gas against Jihen in that first fight, but that's because her body was getting worked over like crazy, and that is how the fight ended up finishing. So, I think for Stamp, why not work the body as best as you can from distance, of course, or I mean, even in tie with those knees. Why the hell not? Throw them in there. As Ghost says, I mean, the Panda did it, and Ghastly out. Well, there you go. Yeah, see that's exactly just getting at was Panda was able to gas her with those. His Panda would take the center when she could. Yeah, gotta love some Panda. Kind of a bummer she's not on this card, but you know how one is. Gotta hype up one person over the other, I guess. As they're claiming that this is the biggest women's fight ever, I'm sure. At least in their history, they're saying. But I disagree with that when you have champ versus champ. I don't think the Jihen or Lee fights are topped by this, but this is still a great fight. As James says, I was watching your old SCMP interviews for 268. Drake, you asked Rose about Whaley training with Cejudo, and the game plan was obvious at 268. I asked Rose about Whaley training with, and the game plan was obvious. Where are we here? As James says, that's the same thing. Why did you say training with Henry was a weird choice? Whaley training with Cejudo, and sorry, I can't read today, guys. I told you a little bit out of it. Why did I say training with Henry was a weird choice for Whaley? I don't know. Let's think. Let's think back to my thought process at the time. I don't know. I guess just location wise, maybe. I'm not sure what I could have been thinking there, but I don't know. I feel like I didn't say word. Maybe paraphrasing here, James, but I'm trying to think about maybe I remember asking her about her thinking that it was, kind of like you said, obvious what the game plan would be because Henry's a wrestler. So then expecting the wrestling, very obvious to expect wrestling from Whaley training with Henry. That kind of sounds like what I was thinking. So you might just be throwing me off there with the setup for that question, but yeah, that's what I kind of remember. A little bit fuzzy today, like I said, but yes. As Chuck says, he used the Phantom Punch breakdown for Angela Lee in his research for the Stamp preview. All right, there you go. Cool. As James says, as Ghost and Jack Sack said, she was doing really clever things during the fight that gave Rose trouble. Jack Slack even gave her a nomination for Game Plan of the Year. Or are they wrong? No, I mean, in the rematch, I mean, it was a great game plan. And again, most people think she won. Most people think she won because of that game plan. So, no, it was fine. So, like, yeah, what I was thinking, I was meaning in that case was, I feel like I didn't say anything about it being weird, like you said, but mentioning how it made it obvious what her game plan was. So, Zhao was here. What a great show. Can't wait to rewatch. Well, thank you so much, Zhao. That means a lot. Appreciate it. As we move on, going a little bit over time here again, but it's fine. As we move on from one, should be a fun card, loaded card, lots going on there. UFC Columbus is this weekend as well. Another fight night on the road. In the US, though, coming back to the States as we kick things off at bantamweight, 135 pounds, with Carol Hosa versus Sarah McMahon. This fight has just been quiet as a mouse in terms of the build-up to it. I mean, this is an important bantamweight fight, yet there's been just zero promotion of it from the UFC. I mean, it should be on the main card, but what do you know? It's not. Especially for a division like bantamweight. Sarah McMahon, been around, is a name. Why would you not build this up to be a little bit more important? Because Carol Hosa, with the win here, launches herself even further into the mix. And very interesting to see the odds give her as a pretty good favorite. And I mean, I don't know if that's that crazy at this point. Carol Hosa has looked tremendous in her UFC career to this point. Dominated Betch the last time out, Jocelyn Edwards before that, Vanessa Mello, Procopio. Whereas Sarah McMahon has been out for a while, again, since that Juliana Pena loss. Just hasn't been very active in this later stage in her career, has Sarah McMahon, which is unfortunate. Always love watching her fight. 41 years old now. But unfortunately, I think we've kind of seen the best days from Sarah McMahon, and we know what she's capable of and what to expect with her each and every time out. I mean, she starts off so insanely strong. Just like always wins a first round, looks great in the beginning of fights, and then doesn't gas, just like gives it away. She finds ways to lose when she shouldn't. Happened against Pena. Happened against Renault. Ketlin. I mean, all of these fights. Whenever she loses, that's how it happens. She just destroys people in the first round, maybe round and a half, and then gets caught in something. I mean, she got finished in all of these. I don't remember the last decision that she lost was probably the Misha one. No, I don't know. I mean, probably it's the same thing with Sarah. We know she hits insanely hard, pretty quick with her hands, solid boxing. Of course, phenomenal wrestler, one of the best wrestlers in bantamweight history. Carol Hosa, also very talented grappler. Very, very well-rounded. Can do pretty much everything pretty well. It's probably going to get beat up in the first round. But then she'll submit Sarah McMahon afterward. That's not an official prediction. Guys, don't get mad. But if we're going to follow the trends here, or Sarah will manage to not choke, I suppose. Literally and figuratively. Because if you look at Lena Landsberg, someone who could not. That's kind of the case, though. Again, here, let's look at this specifically, that Lena Landsberg win, which was 2 years ago. Lena Landsberg, somebody who, not the greatest grappler, not going to be able to handle that wrestling, wasn't able to, so she lost. Whereas you look at Pena, good enough wrestler to reverse positions as the fight went on. Marion didn't need to, but good enough off her back to where she could find a triangle. But even though I feel like I remember her getting on top in that fight too, so again, good enough. Ketlin, fantastic wrestler herself. Judo, good grappler. Very good grappler. Carol, I think also is probably going to be good enough. So it's going to be a tough start for any Sarah McMahon opponent. Carol Hosa will find her way back. Probably pick her apart on the feet as the second or third round starts, whichever one. Work the jab, set up some combinations. Maybe even take her down. Because this fight will go to the ground. Definitely early on. Well, I don't know. against the cage at least. Sarah McMahon will try to utilize what she's best at. Just man, her career became such a bummer. I've always been a big Sarah McMahon fan, but could have been champ. Could have been champ. So, yeah, Jin and Ghost asking about Carol's habits. I mean, she chains her takedowns well off the end of her strikes. I always love a fighter who's able to do that. And Carol, again, like Jin asks, what does she do well? And honestly, I hate giving that answer of someone who does everything well, but she's very well rounded. Is Carol Hossa, and this could be a coming out party type of fight for her. Maybe not though, again, because of how Sarah McMahon can make people. She puts people in trouble no matter what. But specifically with Carol, she likes to bully as well. And Scott taking her by decision. As Kimball says, Drake and Ghost, who do you guys consider good ring cutters in MMA? My goodness, off the top of my head, I'm sure Ghost has already answered. Let's see what he says. As Chuck says, McMahon is a master of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Very well said. Her own worst enemy. Yeah, indeed. She's like a better Milana Dudaeva at this point. As Ghost says, tricky question since a good ring cutter can only be classified as one if they are able to cut off a great defensive ring general. There are not that many defensive ring generals in MMA. And he says, Drake is going to hate me for this, but the best example would be Cejudo versus Cruz. Cejudo fakes to the cage, then kicks the legs when he's squared off. Hey, I don't want to be reminded of it, but that is a great example, Ghost. Yes, Henry did very well with that exact thing in that fight. Yeah, that's a tough one to kind of pinpoint, Kimball. Yeah, I mean, that's a great example, though, for sure. So, plenty of examples out there. Just hard to think of them sort of off the top. As Jin implores to check out the slideshow. So, all right, that's the bantamweight fight. As we move on to the fight Scott is most looking forward to, and I'm quite excited for it as well. As Jennifer Maia, flyweight, takes on Manon Fiorot. The upgrade for Manon, going from Jessica Ai to Jennifer Maia. Pretty drastic jump, you could say, in competition. Couple weeks notice. Big fight, big opportunity for Manon Fiorot. Very, very interesting that it's kind of coming in this fashion. You know, you don't often see a fight fall through and then it becomes a better fight and a more difficult fight for a higher reward, right? Let's put it that way. So Jennifer Maia, as we know, a flyweight legend, former Invicta champ, been there, done that. But holy shit, look at these odds. That is some belief in Manon Fiorot, which, hey, you guys know I love Manon too. I think she is fantastic. I'm on that train as well, but man, that's a disrespectful line. Minus 400 to plus 300 for Maia. Wow, that is wild. That is money to be made. Let's leave it at that. No respect, though, for the OG there. And yeah, I mean, Maia obviously not quite looking the same as back in her title reigning days, but we know that she's still one of the best. Not up there too much yet. 33, just a year older than Manon, but she's rolling right now. The Beast from France with that Mayra Bueno Silva win. Just a very, I don't know what you want to call that performance. It wasn't the same Ricci or Leonardo victory, of course. Those were both excellent. But this is a big step up. I mean, especially compared to those. But my goodness, that line is just kind of throwing me for a loop here. Throwing me for quite a loop. Um, as Ghost goes back to the other comments, says, hey, this means that Cruz is a great defensive ring general. Yes, all right. I'll take it. As Rain asks, is Manon going to just spam the same combo, or will she build off things like she normally does? Yeah, that's I don't think she's gonna be able to just do this. That's why I say a calm, I guess, patient performance in her last time out. But hey, got the job done, right? She did what she needed to do to win. And that's just kind of how that one went. I don't think she'll be able to do that against Maya necessarily. Scott takes Manon by decision, but it will be close and a really tough test for Manon. Tough matchup by the UFC, indeed. As Chuck says, the odds are really skewed for this fight, even considering Maya coming in on fairly short notice. Yeah, that line is crazy. Sco says Maya has a tendency to do the circle and set her feet on the tracks, which is prime for that side kick. So, yeah, look forward to some side kicks in this one. Always love seeing those from anybody, but Manon throws them quite nicely. As Chuck says, especially considering Manon's best win is someone who just walked forward, absorbing punches in her guard, if I can speak. Yes, as James says, the MBS win was not good. Yeah, it wasn't anything that we should kind of, not the reason we're hyped on Manon. Let's put it that way. But hey, it worked. As Go says, she's going to have to build off things if she wants to win. As I said, agreed. Maya has somewhat of a varied defense. Yes, for sure. And the size advantage here is in her favor too, as you look at with the distance and the height. And we know that Manon, quite a good distance striker. If she wants to utilize that, she can. Or, she could even mix it up, toss in some takedowns, because another fighter who chains those takedowns well off the end of combinations. But then you're playing in some dangerous waters with Maya on the ground there. So, and what is up, Alex? Good to see you, my friend. Excuse me. So, yeah, this is a very interesting fight. One of the more interesting fights of the weekend. And you better believe if Manon wins, I don't think title shot next, but she will be a fight away. That's for sure. That is for sure. Apologies, guys. Getting dry throat here. As Jen asks, does Maya have good clinch entries? I mean, I would typically say yes, but I feel like we haven't seen her do too well in setting up her clinch recently. It's I mean, you look at the win-loss pattern here. Go back to that Giukajian fight. Was what it was. Great performance from Giukajian in that rematch, which was what it was. The Jessica I fight, Jessica kind of gave those opportunities to her. The JoJo win, don't remember it really going there. Obviously, got the arm bar. The first Giukajian fight, Yeah. So, Sincho asking, what is Maya's spatial awareness like? Well, we're gonna find out. But no, if you do look again at that last Giukajian fight, wasn't too great either, I don't think. Just kind of came to Giukajian in some cases there. As real quick, Alex asks, has the Kibas versus Giukajian fight announcement already been talked about? Yes, did talk about it during the news, my man. So, yeah. But yeah, I don't know. This is a very interesting one. I feel like Maya hot and cold these days. So I don't know what to say about her spatial awareness, specifically in this case. As Scott says, DR, if you have time, can you also shout out EKC Layden for completing the Wimp to Warrior 20-week program? Won his first amateur fight at the age of 44 Saturday night. Amazing stuff. Yes, shout out to Mr. Casey indeed. Mr. Fighter Guy. Good for him. Big congratulations. Very cool to see. 30-27 shutout. I did not watch the entire fight, but I watched a little bit of it, glanced through and saw him using that wrestling, dominating his opponent. So Good for him. Big congratulations. Very cool to see the media go through, get some action. It honestly made me want to do it a little bit. So there you go, you guys. Who knows? We'll see what happens. Even though I think I'd have to go somewhere for Wimp to Warrior, but who knows? Amateur fights are still possible anywhere. It's inspiring stuff. Good for Casey. Shout out to him. As hold on. As Jersey says, do you know why Ghost likes to ask a question after every Phantom Punch? It feels like he already knows the answer to them. Yeah, I know. He it's all for the show, Jersey. I think that's what it's all about. As James says, will spatial awareness be important here? Mano likes to be at range while Maya likes to circle a lot. Yeah, I think very much so. That is definitely, it's going to be a distance game. I would predict. As Ghost says, you can do it. He'll coach me. All right, there you go, guys. If we make it happen, then you know one man who will be in my corner. But you won't know who it is, right? He'll still have to keep the identity a secret. So yeah, we'll see about that. As Jimmy says, Team Big Rig. There we go. Appreciate it. All right, as we get to the co-main event here to wrap up the show, getting close to that 130 again. But Joanne Wood versus Alexa Grasso. It's going down. I am hyped for this one as well. Alexa Grasso finally back. Feels like it's been forever since her Macy Barber win, right? That was the last fight. We'll see here in a moment. Oh, as my screen almost disappeared. That wouldn't have been great. It was a full year ago this month against Macy Barber. Oof. And a little bit of a must-win fight for JoJo. Coming off, well, a 1-3 streak here. That one win being over Jessica I. Before that, the Jennifer Mai submission. Laura Murphy split. I know people thought she won that one. And then the Tyler Santos RNC after getting dropped. We got Grasso as the favorite. Similar stats. These are two former strawweights as well. This fight could have happened. This fight could have happened in Invicta at strawweight, if we're going to be completely honest. Fantastic matchup. I think should be very fun. Alexa Grasso, as many at Lobo Gym are, phenomenal boxers. Very, very good boxers. But as we continue to see over the course of Alexa's career, her wrestling and ground game is improving as well. Thought it was very, very funny to see so many people think that she'd be just toast against Macy Barber on the ground. But we saw her hit some pretty sick sweeps and get in some great positions against Macy because she's been improving there. You forget that she's not even 30 yet. Alexa's been around for a while as well. But yeah, she's improving everywhere. And defensively, her wrestling looks sharp in that one. Probably not going to need it in this one unless we see JoJo decide to whip it out, which we have seen in some cases. You know, especially at flyweight on this recent run. But it's cost her in some cases, like with Jennifer Maia. I don't think she'd have to worry too much against Grasso with submissions, particularly. But why gamble when she's best on the feet? Loves those front kicks, the teeps at range. Alexa Grasso. You want to talk about some good movement, some circling, some good combinations, crisp hands. He's got all of that. I think this fight should probably be one where they meet in the middle. And if it does go to clinch, JoJo, of course, those vicious Dr. Neville knees, their elbows, mainly the knees, though. Great step knees. Just haven't seen it all too much. And it's crazy to think JoJo's 36 now. So, again, 3 losses in a row potentially would not be great for her. This is a very motivating situation and spot to be in. But Alexa Grasso, again, at her best, is one of the best in the world. Like, I always look back at that Carolina fight, and it just blows my mind how incredible she looked that night. The Alexa Grasso that fought Carolina in that fight, that was a world champion. That was just one of my favorite performances to watch. So if she can bring that back at flyweight consistently, my God. But has some momentum here with two wins and get back at it against one of her old heroes a little bit. So, Centro asks, what weight class would I compete in? Let's see. What weight class would I compete in? So, in theory, I'd pack on some more muscle, and I do want to work out a little bit more, just in general these days. Um, let's assume I'd cut 10. I wouldn't want to get too crazy with it. So, I would ideally probably want to fight at, depending on how much muscle I could pack on, maybe bantamweight or featherweight. Maybe ideally would be featherweight, assuming I added like 20 pounds of muscle or 15 maybe, depending. I don't know. But 5'9" at featherweight, pretty good frame for that division, right? Would have some advantages. Something like that. As Go says, oh, I really like this one. Grasso likes to square people off after faking toward the opponent lead hand. That's very fun to watch, Grasso. And Wood has really clever intercepting knees and elbows and really good strikes in the clinch. Indeed, she does. Has to get it there, though. James says, well, if Ghost is excited for this, then we all should be. Should all be excited. Anyways, very important for the Cagecraft. Back Grasso up for Wood and beat her in the clinch. And for Grasso, stay off the cage. Indeed. I mean, that's the thing with Alexa is like, I know I have said this a lot about some fighters. Marina Rodriguez in particular, most recently, was one of those fighters who had just not been matched in the striking department up until the Joanne fight, obviously. Alexa Grasso, though, I still feel like at this point in her career, no one's really, you see when she loses to people like Carla, which that was, people feel she should have won that one. The Suarez fight. And then before that, what was it? The weird Felice one where she was kind of off in that one and got grappled a little bit in that one as well. But Alexa, I don't know. You could argue that she has not been beat in a striking battle. So that's what makes this one very interesting. Will JoJo be her Zhao Nan, if I'm to make that Marina comparison? But yeah, you want to close the gap with Alexa because when she has her space, she styles on people generally. She is somebody you don't want to let breathe. Otherwise, she's going to have her way. As Go says, these two actually understand to manipulate expectations and reading their opponents. Well, there you have it. As Rain says, oh man, I'm really hyped for this if Ghost talking about it this much. Rue says, so this is a technical fight. Does Grasso get backed up on the fence? Centro says, not typically, no. Not typically. She's very well versed at. Again, like I said, fantastic movement. All those boxing-based fighters at Lobo Gym move very well and are able to kind of get out of those positions more often than not, I would say. As Alvin says, such a phenomenal card. Should be a fun one. Should be a fun one indeed. But all right, you guys, I think that we could probably leave it off there. Excuse me, as I'm starting to decay away. UFC Columbus back on the road again, like I said, for a fight night. The UFC. That's some fun ones. A lot of fights. 3 on the UFC card. What? 1, 2, 3, 4. Just well, I guess 3 MMA fights on the one card as well, plus the grappling match. But a lot of action going down at these times. As James asks, real quick, does Zhao Nan count as a ring general? Ghost and Drake. I would say so. She dictates the action more often than not. And you look at the Marina fight. I mean, it was working in some situation. Yeah, I think typically it'd be fair to say. We'll see what Ghost will say. Get his thoughts as well as you ask. But either way, I am very Zhao Nan biased, though, as well, as you all know. Don't forget, you guys, as we do wrap up, to follow, like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell on YouTube to MMA Mania. Check out MMAmania.com for all your needs in the world of mixed martial arts. Join me here every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific time for the WMMA Mania show, as we are here. Appreciate you guys greatly. For the shameless plugs, nothing that is on deck necessarily, but we do have things out, of course. As I spoke to Diana Avsaragova last week, that is out now. Very fun talking to her. Amanda Lemos, Mulan Wu Yanan is back in action, coming up here against Mary Bueno Silva in a couple weeks. Avsaragova just got that win at Bellator. Amanda Lemos is fighting Jessica Andrade. Yeah, things and stuff, right? So stay tuned in for all that. Follow MMAmania.com, as I said, on all platforms, at @DrakeRiggs_ as well. Thank you so much, Scott. So yeah, I think that is about it, you guys. Appreciate you all once again. And until next time, enjoy the week ahead. Enjoy the fights. Stay safe. Stay sane. And I'll see you when I see you guys. Take care.